Alright, the trailer for the Blu-ray has come out. I'm just going to do a very short capsule review of both the actual film and the Blu-ray. It hasn't come out yet, but we now have a pretty good idea of what will be on the discs and what will not be on the discs. So, and then give a judgment whether it's worth the price of purchase. So let's just start out right away. There's not going to be a lot of features. Apparently when they say they have hours of new interviews and things like that, they don't have a lot what I think people want, which is the deleted scenes. We're really interested to have deleted scenes of Luke, deleted scenes of Mace Windu, of Kenobi and things like that, of Matt Smith. He was in the film, but he's not in the theatrical cut. There's also some scenes with Rose and Rey at the beginning. Those are cut. And the novelization has a scene with Kylo meeting somebody, and that's not in the film. Those apparently are not going to be on the Blu-ray. What they have is a making of feature, they have more cast interviews, and presumably have a little bit more like extended scenes and things like that, but they don't really have a lot of the deleted scenes that people have been talking about. So at that level, that's very disappointing. But let me go through the highlights of the actual film and whether it's worth the purchase. So, strong points. It looks pretty good. It's visually very powerful in certain places. The creature design is very strong. I thought the set designs were also very good in many places, especially with Palpatine and Sidious's lair. I thought some of the Star Destroyer looked pretty good. And again, some of the creature design here and there is really remarkable, but there's really not a lot of that. In terms of probably the best features, which they give away in the Blu-ray trailer, which is amazing, but is Luke and Han. Now, Luke is not too surprising because they give away in the regular trailer that Palpatine has returned. But I'm going to say that Luke and Han are there collectively about 15 minutes. They're not in there for a long amount of time. Those ones are pretty good, and they're pretty well directed, and the dialogue is actually really good. Unfortunately, those are probably the best scenes in the whole film. There's a couple of good scenes overall with some of the other characters at the beginning with Poe, where he's doing some insane piloting. There's also some good scenes of fighting with Kylo and Rey, which, again, are in the trailer, but those don't last very long. And it's kind of deceptive how they end, too. So there's still some good scenes, some good action scenes here and there. But would they justify the price of purchase? I don't know. It depends on the price. If it's going to be priced towards $25 to $30, I'd have to say it's not worth it. If it's priced more reasonably towards $12 to $20 and you have the money to purchase it, I would say it's worth it because you can go back to your favorite scenes and play them over and over again. And the good parts are pretty good. But I'm going to just do a very short, non-spoiler review. You can look at a more detailed review later. So what's the basic story? Well, two stories. Basically, Kylo meets Palpatine and they have a conspiracy together. And Rey has to go on this quest to find Palpatine, and Poe and Finn are tagging along, basically. And that's how we get that good action scene with, they fly now. That's a part of that quest. But the quest really doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not giving too much away to say that they find a dagger, and the dagger is critical. But the dagger story doesn't really make a lot of sense. There was obviously a lot of rewrites and a lot of reshoots. And the dagger story part is really very, very weak. We learn a little bit more about Rey and her background and things that retcon The Last Jedi as well as The Force Awakens, but I don't think they really hold up. So the narrative on the whole is kind of weak. And basically the two stories converge where Kylo and Rey obviously are going to meet up. And again, if you see the Blu-ray trailer, it's pretty obvious they're going to meet up and team up against Palpatine. And they even show some of the Palpatine fight, and I think that was actually really, really disappointing. The Palpatine fight really doesn't last too long, and the special effects, I think, there were actually kind of the weakest. They didn't really make a lot of sense. There's even some editing errors, so I'm actually very interested if the Blu-ray still has those editing errors, because they were pretty glaring. They were just very, very noticeable. So the story on the whole is not that strong. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but it's really one of the weakest in the trilogy. Again, visually it's pretty good in certain places, but sometimes special effects are not that impressive. The plot really takes these swerves, which don't make a lot of sense. At times it feels very cluttered. But still, overall, there's a lot to like. I thought Richard Grant did a lot with his very small cameo, because he's not in there ever long. Palpatine is pretty good. I thought Oscar Isaac is pretty good. Anthony Daniels in his memoir reveals that he had a really great scene with Poe that was very emotional, but that was cut from the theatrical version. So there are a lot of little good things within Skywalker, but again, I have to say the majority of the film kind of drags. It doesn't really ever, I think, really achieve what I think it set out to do, which is probably this kind of amazing conclusion to the whole saga. So on the whole, it's kind of an okay picture, and if it's priced moderately, then I would say it's worth purchase. But again, in terms of the features and everything that you're probably going to get, it's more documentaries, more cast interviews and things like that, maybe a few more behind the scenes things. So I'd say overall, I guess the features would be worth it, but I guess what people really want are the cut scenes, the deleted scenes, and really getting a kind of not different film, but one that's way bigger and more extensive and explains more of the scenes in context, and that apparently is not what we're going to get. But who knows, maybe they're going to do a more extended cut later, but the Blu-ray, at least it's the way it's going to be initially, is going to basically just feature the documentary and a few more interviews. So if you did like the film, then yeah, it's probably worth the price of purchase with the extra features, but if you didn't see the film, I really can't recommend it too highly. You could just wait for it, but if you do want to go back to these really great scenes within the film, then I would say it's worth the purchase, but I can't lie, the scenes are not that many. It's really only going to make up at most like 20-30 minutes of the whole film, and the film is over 2 hours, so you have to make the judgment whether those 30 minutes are worth the price of purchase. Alright, this has been a review of both the Blu-ray of Skywalker and the film itself. If you want a more extensive review, you can click on the links. This has been Star Wars Explained. Thanks for listening.